We are speaking today to Dr. Mary Breunig, who has a PhD in education and is currently teaching in a post-secondary classroom as the associate professor in the Department of Recreation and Leisure Studies at Brock University in St. Catharines. Welcome to the Green Majority, Mary.
Thanks.
So we would like to speak to you today because of an article that you had in Alternatives Journal that was dealing with ESP. And no, we're not talking about psychic powers. In this case, we're talking about environmental studies programs. You are if I might put it, just say a professional an educator professional, if you will, because in addition to having taught at many levels within the school system, your PhD, as I said, is in education and spend a lot of time with, thinking about how we learn. And so what you were talking about in the article that I'd like to discuss with you today was some studies that you've been doing, some research about how people learn and how courses like environment courses that have been removed over the past many years of sort of educational condensation, if you will, or cutting, if you want to look at it one way, is that we've lost a lot of these like outdoor programs and this sort of thing. And so you went to study what sort of the effects that outdoor education and environment education had on younger students. Do you want to just outline a little bit, if I missed anything about your study that was there, and then you can tell us a little bit about what the results were?
Yeah, so most specifically what I look at with this particular study, and I have a number of studies I'm engaged in, but with this particular study it's quite targeted. And there currently exist 33 integrated environmental studies programs across Ontario. And what they do is they offer a grouping of packages, or a grouping of courses as a package, and students study in a cohort. So they study and it's secondary school students, and they study essentially living in a cohort and learning the 4-credit package in a holistic way, and it's usually taught by 1 or 2 teachers. Some of the programs do it at the school site. Other programs actually get on a school bus in the morning and go out to a camp or a nature center and study off-site. And the specific focus of the study is to look at what environmental knowledges do students learn in these programs, but more specifically and more interestingly, how does that translate to what we call pro-environmental behaviors? And that can run the gamut from domestic behaviors like recycling, water usage, to more emancipatory behaviors and issues of food security and where your food comes from, and issues of social and environmental justice. And so that's specifically what we look at, is not just the knowledges that students learn, but how that translates into pro-environmental action. And then we do retrospective data collection on these programs because they've been around for over 30 years. And we look at and talk to students who were in these programs over the course of those 30 years to find out which of those environmental behaviors have kind of stuck and how their program participation has impacted their professional pathways and life choices and lifestyles.
One of the things that you talk about in the article is student reactions and sort of peer reactions to these younger students. In some cases, other students mocking them, saying that they're being, when are you going to do some real work? You guys are just kind of walking around outside, while we have math homework and that sort of thing. And we've also covered on previous interviews as well a similar case, but with adults, where adults, had sort of self-reported that they felt weird about doing things or embarrassed about doing things like recycling because it wasn't perceived as being cool, and they thought that their peers would judge them. Even as adults, they were sort of subject to this. What sort of a factor do you think that this plays into people's both sort of acceptance of this sort of program as something that should be presented to children, and as environmentalism in general, the factor of peer pressure? Yeah.
And I think what we're starting to see more and more is actually peer pressure in trending in the opposite direction of what you're describing. It actually, I think, has become uncool for young people to not recycle. What you're speaking about, adults, really resonates. But I actually think that younger people now are just, this is the new norm, especially in Canada. And if they see a friend throw a bag of trash out the window, they call them out on it, even if they're not in these programs, as is what I experience. But I think the claim that you're making around peers sort of looking at the course as a course that is sort of less rigorous is a challenging one. And often these courses and outdoor courses in general in schools, including universities, are sort of referred to as bird courses.
Mm-hmm. Ironically,
and staff and teachers and faculty often sort of describe them in the same way. So that's not just coming from peers; it's also coming from other people within the schools. And what happens is, I think a lot of the teachers of these programs kind of develop what we call in my discipline the lone wolf syndrome. So they sort of see themselves or start to self-identify as kind of a lone wolf, and part of how they sort of sustain themselves in these programs is to really just the engagement that they get from the students and the experiences that they share with them are so nurturing that they're able to kind of overcome some of those other feelings of being the other. And I think students experience the same thing. A lot of the students in the programs are students that are athletes, and maybe they have to make a choice if they're in the program because there's a lot of field courses in these environmental studies programs that they may not be able to play soccer a particular semester, but they start to believe so fully in what they're doing in the program that they report missing it or anticipating missing it pre-program commencement, but post-program it hardly even registers for them.
So just with respect to what the actual research that you're doing is for, you have a few choice words in there, as we sort of alluded to earlier, about the stripping down of education and the reimagining of it with, stripped down and we're losing everything. We have basic math classes and that sort of thing, but things that used to involve outdoor. Richard Louv, you mentioned there as well, of nature deficit disorders coming from these sort of stripping down of the regular curriculum. Do you intend to use, is this research sort of intended to advocate for policy, or are you just looking to educate individuals, or what exactly is the hope you have for this?
Well, it's a variety of things. Some of it is to motivate people to think more about this. And a piece of it is definitely to start to establish, because there's anecdotal evidence that sort of suggests that we assume that an increase in environmental knowledge just leads to environmental behaviors. And what we're learning is that that's not necessarily the case. Depending upon how a piece of curriculum is taught, who's teaching it, the school context, whether it's rural or urban, peer pressure, parental pressure, all these various factors, socioeconomic status, are all affecting which knowledges get translated into which behaviors. So part of it is to generate some outcomes-based research to really support reintegrating environmental education into the K-12 classroom. And not necessarily in this form or not necessarily as a standalone course, but a little bit like community service learning, which is also kind of a big buzzword and is gaining popularity. And to have it be something that's integrated into various courses where appropriate. So rather than have it be kind of a standalone course, to integrate it into a biology course, integrate it into secondary science education, physical education, leadership, and some of the ministry requirements that currently exist, and to perhaps package it alternatively as this course does, but also just to think about the ways in which we can just integrate this in a more fluid way cross-curricularly. I've just been in contact with the Ministry of Education. So I've been to Ministry Symposium and presented my research, and I'm just now beginning conversations with them now that I have a bit more data and some results to share, to ask them what kind of potential collaborations there are, and to also ask them the kind of research and the kind of ways in which I might be able to use the data to support environmental education initiatives in schools.
Mm-hmm. Well, if this does end up turning into some sort of as a movement, if you get some sort of action where you're looking for support, please do keep us posted of the developments. I think there's a lot of we do have a lot of educators that listen to this program, as well as the educated students. That is. So I think you'll find a lot of sympathy within our audience. So it would be our pleasure to have you back on if you had any new research you want to discuss or anything. For the time being, however, that is all the time we have for. I want to thank you very much, Dr. Mary Breunig, for joining the Green Majority today.
Thank you.
All right, take care.